Alright, welcome back. This is M-Dog, and this is a follow-up video to a video I made just a few days ago about this spot 71-100 here in Volkhov. We talked a lot in the last video about targeting Ide, and also briefly mentioned how to target Bream and even Chub in this spot. First of all, let me just update this spot real quick. If you have been targeting Ide here, you may have noticed that the Ide have slowed down dramatically. In fact, while we're talking, let me go ahead and do this. I'm going to put out, look at that trophy silver bream, talking about the perfect timing to make a video, huh? Sometimes it just works out. Sometimes it just works out. So what I want to do here, that was on redworm, and that's mostly what we're going to be talking about is redworm. But what I want to do here is I want to put on the salmon, which overall I would say that was my favorite Ide bait. And let's just see if we get anything here. We're coming up on that time when trophy Ide would come out. But what I wanted to tell you is that for the most part, I would say that the Ide have really slowed down in this area. And you may still occasionally get the random Ide or even a trophy Ide on the boilies, but because so many of the Ide have moved out, what you're seeing a lot more is catfish on the boilies. So I put an update on the description of the last video to kind of give fair warning to people. If you come to this spot right now putting all boilies in the water like I had been doing when the Ide were hitting heavy, you are going to risk catching the larger catfish, because if the Ide aren't biting it, eventually the catfish will. And that wasn't happening when the Ide were really active, but now that they're not. What I want to talk to you about in this spot now is how good this spot is for the different bream species. And really this is just a good example of the evolution of a spot. The Ide have kind of moved out for the most part, and we're sort of testing that while we're making this video. I bet we won't catch anything on the boilies, and if we do, it'll probably be a catfish. The Ide have kind of moved out, and the bream have pretty much moved in. Now, I had been testing maggots on this line, but let's put redworms back on. Redworms is, for the most part, what I recommend you use here now. You could have one line with pea porridge on, but redworms is so good, I hate for you to miss out on it. I would just say, right now, in my opinion, redworms might be worth going 3 across. This is one of the main reasons why. Blue bream. And if you look at, let's look at the records right now. You can see we're 1 and 2 on the records, and I think that's because this spot has just evolved in the last day or two. And all of a sudden there's schools of blue bream around, you know, and so really nice blue bream are coming out. If you check the cafe, there's often really easy cafe orders for blue bream that are typically worth a decent amount of silver. So that is one thing I'm seeing is the blue bream. The regular bream, if you look at the weeklies again, you're seeing a random, every once in a while a trophy is coming out on redworms, but really nice consistent catches on the bream on redworm. And later in the day, early in the morning, you're going to get all of these markers, and they add up for good silver. Random chub coming out. You saw us catch that most recent chub on the maggots, but even on redworm you'll get chub every once in a while. I've gotten a lot of crayfish in the last day or two since testing this spot. Again, occasionally an Ide comes out. It's not too perchy of an area, but you should expect some. Both zebra mussels and river mussels, both will come out some. Both silver bream and white bream. You saw the silver trophy. We also have been catching a lot of white bream in this spot. So that's been good. And then, of course, Vendus are just always sometimes around. But all right, let's see what we've got in here, and then I'll update you on hook sizes and ground bait. In case you didn't see the other video, I do want to give you all of the information about hook sizes, ground bait, and the line that we're using in this spot. If you've seen my other videos, it's going to be very similar. So there's a bream, a little smaller. So what I'm doing here is I'm casting basically exactly south with one line, anywhere from 50 to 70, 75%. And then with the other two lines, oh, this might be a decent fish here. With the other two lines, I'm moving just farther and farther west with the casts. And I'll show you why. If you look out here, this 6.5 hole, we're just kind of covering that hole in front of us. And I have found that spreading them out a little bit, but anywhere between 50 and 75% cast, it's a really consistent bite rate of mostly marker fish. Let's see what this is. It's probably a bream. Yeah, another decent bream. So that one's 3.1. And those are worth good silver. You know, it's a little different than the eyed, but it's still consistently good silver. And let's check this. So nothing yet on the boilies. So we'll keep checking that. And my suspicion though, from the time I've spent here, and I kind of stopped going for eyed myself when the bream got so good, especially when you start seeing Vemba and blue bream show up, which both of those have been coming out of this spot. That is a fast way to really increase the value of your keep net. And so when I saw those results, I pretty much stopped going for the eyed because the bite had slowed down significantly. We're still seeing a trophy every once in a while, but yeah, the eyed had really slowed down. Okay, so let's look at what we've got going here. For bream, typically I'm using size 8 hooks. I'm still using the 9.7 fluorocarbon line, no leader because we've got the fluorocarbon line. These are loop rigs with my own sort of concoction of ready-made ground bait. This is my alt account, so I'm not leveled up enough to make bream ground bait, but that's okay. If you're just starting out your ground bait, there are ways to go around that, and of course redworm. And that's the majority of the fish in my net right now were caught off of redworm. Now, with the boilie, I was using size 6 hooks. And even with redworm, I have had one line with size 6 hooks, and that's mostly just been me trying to increase the size of the bream to see if that might work. It probably doesn't affect it that much. I've caught tons of trophy bream on 8s, but because not many have been coming out, I thought I would give that a try. Obviously, we are still using these Bunison pickers. This is my alt account, so we put points in picker rods on this account. On my other account, we would be doing the Bunison feeder rods in this case. And here's another 8 with redworm. Okay, so let me show you the ground bait. This is my newest thing. It seems to work pretty well. When you're leveling up ground bait, some people decide to just, basically just put crackers in the base and then just make it like that. And that will, in fact, level you up. But on my alt account, I'm not in a huge rush. I'm really just wanting to experiment with things. So instead of speed leveling, what I've been doing is actually kind of making different concoctions. I've shown you something similar to this. This is going to have a lot in common with the maggots and porridge with regular bream ground bait. And what I'm adding, because I can't do anise oil yet, I'm adding sunflower oil. And I think this mixture has worked better than caramel. I had tried caramel as well. Kind of like the sunflower oil mixture. So I'm putting those together. Every time you make some, you level up your ground bait. When you're this low a level, you pretty much always do. And yeah, so just steady as she goes. When I hit 15%, I'll unlock the next level, which we're close. We're at 14.5. But that's what I've been doing, and it's worked out really well. All right, let's see what we're catching on redworm here. So at night, I tend to catch mostly regular bream. Bream are nocturnal fish. You'll see a lot of them at night. That's disappointing. Every once in a while the roach come out, but honestly it's not many roach, not many perch, thankfully. And when the roaches are 500 grams, I go ahead and turn them into fish pieces. So let's check those boilies. Those eyeds and sometimes even the catfish will just kind of chill, or the burbot. Burbot don't get on boilies though. Burbot will get on the redworms occasionally. So that's pretty much it. I think I just wanted to update this spot. Update a video with this spot. I'm just kind of working on different videos, but I want to update you on what's happening here. And if you're still trying to go for the eyed, as you see from the middle line that has that boilie on there, it's a pretty slow bite rate now for eyed. It's not that you won't occasionally get one, you may, But now the percentage of catfish is going to be too high. It's not worth it in my opinion, at least with the way it is right now. Now this spot will keep changing, and eventually we'll probably move to another spot. I normally would have been looking at other spots when the eye dried up, except that the bream became so good, especially with the blue and Vimba. It is some really nice silver. Looking at those. So as always, thanks for watching. I think I'm going to do a video here shortly just about the basics of feeder fishing. I've had some newer players since the Steam release has come out that have been asking me about the basics of feeder fishing, and so we might go back to Mosquito and just spend a few minutes talking about how to set up your first feeder rod and what you want to do with that, and then maybe look at a couple spots at Mosquito that typically is pretty good. So that should be coming shortly. But as always, thanks for watching, and tight lines, everybody.